The rain hit the tin roof like 1,000 tiny hammers. Jacob sat near his small fire, wrapped in an old blanket, watching the flames dance. Outside, the wind howled across the broken wasteland, carrying the scent of metal and dust. His small shelter, made from old ship panels and scrap wood, was the only light for miles. The rest of the land was cold, dark, and dangerous. He was used to being alone, scrapper by trade, loner by choice. That night, he planned to eat canned beans, check his salvage, and sleep. But fate had other plans. A sharp sound came from outside. Something. Scraping against the door, Jacob stood quickly, hand going to the blaster on his belt. He moved toward the door, quiet as a ghost. Then another sound, like something falling. He opened the door a crack. Rain poured in, blinding his view, but then he saw her. She was crawling, barely moving. An alien woman, soaked and shivering, her skin a soft, silver blue. Her arms shook as she tried to reach the edge of his shelter. Glowing lines ran across her body like weak lights fading in the rain. Around her neck was a metal collar, blinking red. "Stop right there," Jacob said, pointing his blaster. The woman froze, then slowly lifted her head. Her eyes, large and glowing violet, met his. She didn't beg, didn't cry, she only said, "Please, don't shoot. I have nowhere else to go." Jacob hesitated. She looked weak, almost broken, but she could still be dangerous. He scanned the horizon. No ships, no other footsteps. She was alone. He stepped back and waved the blaster. "Inside, slow, no tricks," he said. She nodded, then crawled in, leaving wet streaks on the floor. Once inside, she collapsed near the fire, trembling. Jacob closed the door and stood over her, still holding the weapon. She looked up at him and whispered, "I haven't eaten in days." Jacob tossed her a protein bar. She grabbed it with shaking hands and tore the wrapper with her teeth. She chewed like an animal, desperate, silent tears running down her cheeks. He noticed her clothes, thin, torn, barely covering her. She didn't look like a soldier, or a spy, more like a slave or a runaway. "What are you doing here?" Jacob asked, his voice rough. She swallowed, then replied, "I was banished, hunted. They will kill me if they find me." Jacob didn't lower his blaster. "Why were you banished?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she leaned forward, holding her hands near the fire. Steam rose from her skin as the cold rain dried. "I broke a law," she said softly, "but not the kind you think." Jacob didn't press her. He knew enough about alien politics to guess it was messy. He had seen collars like hers before, control devices, trackers, often used on prisoners. "Or pets. I'm not a danger to you," she said, her voice quiet but firm. I just need a place to rest one night, then I'll leave." Jacob watched her closely. She was beautiful in a strange way, but there was something else. Sadness, deep and old. She reminded him of the wounded animals he sometimes found near the scrap fields. "You can sleep near the fire," he finally said, lowering his blaster. "But if you try anything, I'll shoot without warning." She nodded, then laid down, curling up like a child. The firelight flickered on her face, showing a long scar down her jawline. She whispered something in her language, something soft and broken. Jacob didn't understand the words, but he felt them. Outside, the rain fell harder, but inside the small shelter, two strangers shared warmth in silence. One human, one alien, one with a gun, the other with nothing left to lose. And in that moment, the story of trust, danger, and a final offer that could change everything had just begun. The fire crackled softly as the storm continued to rage. Outside, Jacob sat against the wall, arms crossed, watching the strange alien woman sleep. Her silver-blue skin reflected the orange light, and her glowing markings pulsed faintly. She looked peaceful now, not like the desperate, crawling figure from earlier. He didn't trust her yet. He couldn't. Too many things didn't make sense. Why was she alone? Why was she banished? And why had she come to a human scrapyard world? Like this one. Suddenly her eyes opened. Not fast, not startled, just calm, aware. I didn't mean to sleep, she said softly, her voice rough. You needed it, Jacob replied, not moving. She sat up slowly, wincing from hidden pain in her ribs. Thank you, she whispered. Jacob didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to the collar around her neck. Tracker? She nodded, fingers brushing the cold metal. They think I'm still in the outer sector, she said. I hacked the signal before I escaped. Jacob raised an eyebrow. You hacked a royal tracker? Her eyes flicked toward him, unreadable. I was someone important once, she said. Now I'm nothing. She reached toward the fire, warming her fingers. Jacob tossed her another protein bar, and she caught it mid-air. Quicker reflexes than before, he noticed. As she ate, Jacob stared at her markings. They weren't random. There was a pattern, like symbols woven into her skin. He had seen something similar in a report once, years ago, royal birth signs, used only by a few noble alien houses. You're not just a runaway, he said carefully. She didn't deny it. Instead, she looked into his eyes and said, I need your help, human. Jacob didn't respond. She leaned forward, closer to the firelight. Then, she did something that surprised him. She pulled back the torn cloth covering her side. Below her ribs, near her hip, was a small, hidden crest glowing faintly beneath her skin. A royal sigil. He had no doubt now. I was supposed to marry a man I didn't choose, she said quietly. He wanted power, not me. When I refused, they said I dishonored my blood. So they branded me a traitor and threw me away. Jacob stayed silent. He wasn't sure what to say. She looked away, ashamed. Now even humans hunt me, for the price on my head. Jacob finally asked, Why come to me then? Why risk your life walking into my shelter? She turned back toward him, eyes filled with pain and fire. Because I know what humans trade, she whispered, and I have one thing left to offer. He tensed, unsure what she meant. She didn't move closer, but her words hung in the air, heavy and strange. Make me yours, she said. Not as a slave, not as a prisoner, but as a bondmate. In my culture, that means loyalty for life. Jacob blinked, surprised. He laughed once coldly. You think I'm looking for a wife? He said. She didn't flinch. I think you're a man who doesn't turn away someone in the rain. I think you still have honor. Jacob stood up and walked to the far wall, trying to think. He didn't know this woman. Didn't know her. Full story, but something about her, her voice, her strength, the sadness in her eyes felt real. You know what you're saying? He asked without turning around. That kind of bond, it's not just words. It's survival, it's trust, it's everything. She nodded behind him. I have nothing left, she said. No home, no name, no future. But I can still give something. Jacob turned back slowly. She was kneeling now, not out of weakness but choice. Her head bowed, hands open, not begging, but offering. A final offer, not of desperation, but dignity. If you refuse, she said, I'll leave in the morning. But if you accept, I will follow you, fight beside you, cook, fix, learn. I will never betray. The fire snapped loudly as if reacting to her words. Jacob looked down at his hands, scarred from years of hard work. He had been alone for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to be needed. Finally, he walked over. He didn't kneel, didn't smile, but he held out one hand toward her, palm open. She looked up, blinking once, then placed her hand in his. Soft, warm, trembling. They didn't speak after that. There was no need. The bond wasn't love yet, and it wasn't safety either. But it was something new. Two lost souls making a quiet agreement in the middle of a storm. Outside, the rain began to slow, but inside, something had already changed. The wind had quieted, but Jacob couldn't sleep. He sat beside the fire, eyes fixed on the soft glow of the shield emitter he had found in an old cargo pod. It was broken. But maybe, just maybe, he could fix it. And if he could, it would help. Mask energy signatures, like the kind that Tracker sent out. The alien woman, Riva, she had finally told him, slept quietly wrapped in a blanket he'd offered. Her breathing was steady now, her wounds no longer bleeding. Jacob had cleaned and bandaged her side, though she said little while he worked. Every hour he checked the radar. Nothing yet. No signs of ships or patrols. But something didn't feel right. His instincts, honed through years of living on the edge, were whispering to him. Riva stirred awake just before dawn. She looked over at him, then at the device in his hands. "You're trying to fix the emitter," she said quietly. He nodded. "If we can mask your presence, we can buy time," he replied. She sat up, pulling the blanket tighter. "I didn't think you'd care this much," she said, her voice soft. "I still don't know why I do," Jacob admitted. "Maybe because I see you fighting to stay alive." He turned the emitter over, examining the circuitry. "You have any skills with tech?" he asked. "I used to," she said, then crawled over and began pointing out connections. "Here, this relay is burned, but you can reroute it with this wire." Jacob stared at her, surprised. "You were trained in engineering?" "Royal daughters are trained in everything," she said with a bitter smile. "Diplomacy, tech, languages, self-defense. But none of it saved me." They worked in silence for a while, fingers moving together over wires and circuits. It felt strangely peaceful, like two survivors building something new in the ashes. But peace doesn't last long on the fringe worlds. Jacob's comm unit beeped. He frowned, pulled it out, and checked the signal. A public bounty alert had updated across the sector. His stomach turned cold when he saw her face appear on the hollow screen. Riva, listed under a code name. Seer 72, wanted alive but not unharmed. Bounty, 100,000 credits. By order of the Galactic Royal Court. He looked up slowly, but she had already seen it. She didn't flinch, didn't cry, just lowered her eyes and said, "They raised the price again." Jacob stood up and paced the room. "You didn't tell me it was this bad," he said. "I told you they want me dead." She replied, "I didn't say how badly." He stared at the screen again, reading the details. She was labeled a traitor, a threat to royal stability. Anyone helping her would be charged with harboring a fugitive. Execution on sight. No questions. "This changes things," Jacob muttered. She nodded slowly. "I understand," she whispered, her voice steady, but hollow. "If you want me gone, I'll leave." Jacob turned sharply. "You wouldn't last half a day out there." "I lasted 3 before I found you," she said, raising her chin. "Barely," he snapped. They stared at each other in tense silence. Then she stood up, her bare feet cold on the metal floor. She walked over to the fire and stood tall despite her pain. "I gave you my bond," she said, "but I will not beg. If you choose the bounty, shoot me now and end it cleanly." Jacob's jaw clenched. The blaster was hanging by his belt, but his hand didn't reach for it. Instead, he walked to the door, opened it, and looked out over the quiet wasteland. The world was cruel, and he had survived by being harder than it. But something in him had cracked the night she crawled into his shelter. He didn't want the money. He didn't want to trade a life for a reward. He turned back to her. "I'm not turning you in," he said. "I'm fixing the emitter. We're going to hide you properly." Riva's eyes widened. "You're serious," she said, almost breathless. "You're risking your life." "For me," Jacob nodded once. "I don't leave people behind," he said. "Not anymore." She stepped closer, and for a long moment they just stood there. No words, just understanding. The bond they had made wasn't just survival now. It was trust, hard-earned and fragile. Jacob handed her a small stun knife. "Keep it close," he said. "From now on, if anyone comes for you, they'll have to go through both of us." Outside, a dust cloud was forming in the distance, too early for a storm. Jacob narrowed his eyes. "Someone's coming," he whispered. Riva turned, fear flashing in her glowing eyes. "Then we fight," she said, voice firm. "No more running." The dust cloud grew larger with every passing minute. Jacob checked his scope and saw the shape of a single desert cruiser moving fast across the wasteland. Too fast to be a traitor, too direct to be a wanderer. Someone was tracking them and they were almost here. Inside the shelter, Riva helped Jacob finish rewiring the emitter. Her hands moved quickly, but her eyes kept flicking toward the door. She had seen enough bounty hunters to know how they moved. "You think it's a patrol?" she asked. Jacob shook his head. "Looks private," he said. "Could be a freelance hunter, could be worse." The emitter sparked, then hummed with a soft blue glow. Jacob nodded, satisfied. "It's working," he said. "For now," he tossed her a small cloak made from old cargo fabric. "Cover your markings, keep your head down, let me do the talking." Riva pulled the hood over her head, but her hands trembled. "I'm not afraid to die," she said quietly. Jacob looked at her and replied, "I'm not letting you die." The cruiser came to a loud stop just outside, kicking up dust and gravel. Jacob stepped out, blaster at his side but not raised. The door of the cruiser slid open with a hiss. Out stepped a tall man in desert armor, long coat flapping in the wind. His eyes were covered with red lens goggles and his smile was cruel. "Name's Keln," the man said, voice sharp and smooth. "You the one who picked up a certain blue-skinned runaway last night?" Jacob didn't answer. He crossed his arms and leaned against the wall. "Don't know what you're talking about," he replied. Keln chuckled. "Funny thing," he said, holding up a wrist scanner. "This baby picked up a faint trace not long ago. Royal signature barely masked. Now either you're hiding her," he grinned wider, "or she's very, very dead." Jacob didn't blink. "I haven't seen anyone," he said. "This is scrapland, not a royal palace." Keln stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Look, friend, I don't care what you do with her," he said. "But the bounty says alive, and that means big credits for me. You give her up, I walk away, and you never see me again. Or," he paused, hand brushing the gun at his hip, "I take her by force." Inside, Riva crouched near the edge of the door, listening. Her heart pounded, but her mind stayed clear. She had run from monsters like Keln before. But this time, she didn't want to run. She stood, pulled down the hood, and walked out into the open. Keln turned, blinking behind his goggles. "Well, well," he said. "She shows herself. I expected you to hide behind your pet." Riva stood tall, her glowing markings faintly visible beneath the cloak. "I am no one's pet," she said calmly. Keln laughed. "Your property, princess," he sneered. "A walking prize with a collar." But Riva didn't move. Instead, she raised her chin and spoke with quiet strength. "I was royalty," she said. "Now I am something more. I am bonded to this man by choice, not chains." Jacob took a step beside her, blaster now fully drawn. Keln narrowed his eyes. "Bad choice. Human," he growled. "Do you know who she is? What she's worth?" Jacob didn't flinch. "I know what she is to me," he said. "She's someone who trusted me when she had nothing left. You want to take her, you'll have to kill me first." For a moment the air held still. Only the wind whispered across the sand. Then Keln snarled and reached for his blaster, but Jacob fired first. The shot hit Keln in the shoulder. Knocking him backward, he cursed, dropped his weapon, and fell hard against the cruiser. Jacob moved forward quickly, kicking the weapon away. Keln groaned, bleeding but alive. Jacob looked down at him. "You come back here again," he warned. "You won't leave next time." Keln spat on the ground and climbed into his cruiser. "This isn't over," he hissed. The engine roared and the cruiser sped off, leaving a trail of dust behind. Jacob turned to Riva, his chest rising and falling with each breath. She looked at him, stunned. "You risked your life," she whispered. He nodded. "You offered yours first," he replied. "Now we're even." They went back inside as the wind picked up again. The storm outside was real, but the one inside them was beginning to calm. That night, Riva finally spoke more of her past. Sitting close to the fire, she told Jacob the full truth. She had been a daughter of the royal bloodline, promised to a powerful warlord. When she refused, she was accused of betrayal. Her own sister signed the order for her exile. "I lost everything," she said, eyes filled with sorrow. "But maybe I found something better." Jacob didn't answer with words. He simply handed her a metal mug of warm water and sat beside her. Outside, lightning lit the sky. But inside the small shelter, two souls sat in quiet understanding. No longer strangers. No longer afraid. Something stronger than fear had taken root. Something worth fighting for. Morning came with a thin red sky and silence stretching across the desert. But peace never lasted long for people like Jacob and Riva. The emitter still hummed faintly, working just enough to keep them hidden. But it wouldn't last forever. Jacob knew that, and so did she. They sat together eating from ration packs, not saying much. The silence between them was no longer cold, it felt comfortable. Riva kept her hood low, but the firelight danced against her glowing markings. She seemed more alert now, more alive, stronger than the fading woman who had once crawled through. "The rain, I should go," she said, suddenly breaking the calm. Jacob looked up, confused. "Why?" "They'll send more," she said. "Someone like Kiln doesn't quit, not with that bounty." Jacob leaned back against the metal wall, arms crossed. "You think I saved you just to watch you run off?" "I think you shouldn't have to suffer because of me," she replied softly. "I'm a danger to anyone near me." Jacob picked up his toolkit and set it aside. He stared at her for a long moment before speaking. "You offered something that night, remember? A bond." She nodded. "Yes. I'm starting to think you meant it," he said. Riva's eyes softened. "I did," she whispered. "Then stay," Jacob said simply. "We survive together, or not at all?" She stared at him for a moment, then smiled for the first time, a small, tired smile, but real. Then, a distant sound broke the moment. Engines. Jacob shot to his feet and ran outside, grabbing his scope. This time it wasn't just one cruiser, it was three, moving fast, kicking up dust in wide arcs around the ridge. He swore under his breath. "They're sweeping the area," he said. Riva joined him, her face pale but steady. "We can't fight that many," she said. "Not with just one blaster." Jacob's mind raced. The emitter wasn't strong enough to block that many scans. They'd find the shelter within minutes. "I have one idea," Riva said slowly. He turned to her. "I still have something they want," she said. "I'll go out alone, offer myself to them. But I'll say I'm carrying valuable data. That'll buy you time to escape." Jacob stared at her like she'd lost her mind. "That's suicide," he said. "I'd rather die on my feet than watch you be hunted for me," she said calmly. "You saved me. Now I repay it. But—" Jacob stepped forward, furious. "Stop," he growled. "You don't owe me anything." "You think I helped you just for a favor?" She was stunned. "I helped you because I wanted to," Jacob said, his voice rising. "You were hurt, scared, alone, and still willing to give everything to survive. You reminded me what it means to fight for something real." Riva's hands trembled, not from fear but emotion. "No one's ever said that to me," she whispered. Jacob exhaled, trying to calm himself. "I don't want you to go out there," he said. "But if they come, we face them together." The roar of engines drew closer, too close now. They had minutes, maybe seconds. Riva walked over to a crate, pulled out a long strip of cloth and tied it around her collar, hiding the blinking light. Then she reached into Jacob's gear and took something small, a palm-sized data chip with scrambled human logs. She held it out to him. "This," she said, "let's make them believe it holds something powerful." "What kind of offer are you planning?" Jacob asked. Riva gave him a sad smile. "One no human could refuse." They set up the decoy, placing the data chip in an old steel case marked with warning signs. Jacob placed it near the front door, making it look like a trap or message. Then, he stood beside her, blaster in one hand, calm fury in the other. The sound of boots came first, heavy, armored, precise. 3 bounty hunters approached with their weapons drawn, visors down, voices cold. "Step out now," one shouted. "You're harboring a Class R fugitive." Jacob stepped out first, blaster raised but not firing. "She's here," he said. "But she's no fugitive." Riva walked beside him, cloak fluttering in the dry wind. "I offer myself in exchange for his safety," she said clearly. "And in return, you get this." She held up the steel case. The lead bounty hunter lowered, his weapon slightly curious. "What's that?" Royal intelligence, she lied, hidden inside a human code. Only I can decrypt it. The hunters exchanged glances. Riva stepped closer and whispered, "Or you can shoot me and lose everything." They hesitated, unsure. Jacob moved. Beside her, blaster still ready, and in that moment the wind shifted, carrying silence across the standoff. She had made the offer, a final chance. Herself. Willingly, but only on her terms. No chains, no begging. Just strength and choice, and no one, human or alien, could refuse that. The bounty hunters stood frozen. Their visors reflected the soft light of the steel case in Riva's hands. They hadn't expected her to step forward to speak with such power. She wasn't begging, she wasn't pleading. She was offering a deal, one too valuable to ignore. The leader took a step closer, weapon still in hand. "You swear this holds royal data?" he asked. Riva nodded slowly. "It's encoded in a hybrid format," she said. "Human and alien. You'll need both of us to unlock it." Jacob remained beside her, his blaster steady. He didn't trust the hunters, and he didn't like the way they moved, predators wearing patience like a mask. Another hunter spoke. "And what do we get if we turn you in instead?" "Money," Riva said, "and a quiet death. But if you take this deal, you get power." The leader lowered his weapon just a little. He looked at the others, then back at Riva. "We'll take the case," he said, "and we'll let you go. For now." Jacob narrowed his eyes. "You expect us to trust you?" "No," the leader said with a smirk, "but I expect you to be smart enough not to start a war here." He took the case, turned, and walked back toward the ship. The others followed, weapons still ready but pointed away. No one fired. No one died. Not yet. When the dust settled and the cruiser vanished over the dunes, Riva finally let out a shaky breath. Her knees buckled slightly, and Jacob caught her before she fell. "You were shaking," he said softly. "I was terrified," she whispered back, "but I couldn't show it." He helped her sit down near the fire. For a long while, neither spoke. The emitter still hummed faintly and the desert wind had quieted. Riva leaned her head back, eyes half closed. "I thought they'd kill me right there," she said. "You scared them," Jacob replied. "You used your voice better than a weapon." She looked at him, her violet eyes searching his face. "You stayed beside me," she said. "You didn't leave." "I told you," Jacob said gently. "We're in this together." She reached out slowly and touched his hand. Her fingers were cold but steady. "I don't understand humans," she said softly. "But you've shown me something I never knew." Jacob tilted his head. "What's that?" She smiled faintly. "Kindness without cost." They spent the next few hours reinforcing the shelter. Riva used her knowledge to reroute power to a heat shield. Jacob scavenged old solar plates to recharge the emitter faster. Together, they worked in silence, in rhythm, like partners who had done this 100 times. That night, they ate better. Jacob cooked a pack of dried meat and root stew over the fire. Riva sniffed it first, then smiled. "It smells strange," she said, "but good." After a few bites, she looked up, surprised. "This is delicious." Jacob grinned. "You've been eating emergency rations too long." She laughed softly, the sound light and beautiful. "I haven't laughed in months," she whispered. "Maybe years." As the fire dimmed, she shifted closer. Not out of fear, but comfort, she rested her head lightly against Jacob's shoulder. At first, he tensed, unsure what to do. Then slowly, he leaned his head against hers. The silence between them was warm, not empty, not awkward, just peaceful. She whispered into the quiet. "In my culture, bonding is not just a word. It means sharing breath, warmth, time, and even pain." Jacob nodded. "We're already doing that." She looked up at him, then, "Maybe I am more human than I thought," he smiled gently. "Or maybe I'm becoming more alien." They both chuckled, not because it was funny, but because it felt right. Later, as the fire faded, Jacob took an old cloth and laid it across her shoulders. She looked at him with tired eyes and asked, "What now?" He stared into the dark desert through the window slit. "We build something," he said. "Something they can't take from us." Riva blinked slowly. "You mean a life?" Jacob nodded. "A bond." In that moment, something invisible and real settled between them. Not love, not yet, but something more solid than fear and stronger than survival. A human and an alien. No longer strangers, no longer alone. Bound by fire, storm, and choice, and deep in the silent desert night they knew, whatever came next, they would face it together. The sun rose slowly over the wasteland, painting the dunes in soft gold and deep orange. Jacob stood outside the shelter, watching the horizon with narrowed eyes. Riva sat inside, tightening the bindings on her boots, her face calm but focused. They had survived another night, but peace never lasted long out here. The bounty hunters would talk. The fake data chip would only buy them a little time. Soon, someone smarter or more desperate would come. And this time, they wouldn't walk away. Jacob returned inside with a quiet breath. "They'll come again," he said. Riva nodded. "I know." She strapped a small stun knife to her thigh. "I won't run this time," she added. Jacob looked at her carefully. "You sure about that?" Riva stood, her glowing markings dim but steady. "I've been running all my life," she said. "First from my family, then from my past. But now I have something to protect." Jacob said nothing, but the look in his eyes told her everything. She stepped closer. "I never had a home," she whispered. "Not really. But this place, this bond, feels like one." He reached into his storage box and pulled out a small box. Inside was a beacon transmitter, one that could send a signal off-world. "I fixed this," he said. "We could call for help. Maybe a smuggler. Maybe someone who hates the royals as much as we do." Riva stared at it, then slowly shook her head. "I don't want to run to another cage," she said. "If I leave now, I'll just become a shadow again." Jacob placed the beacon back. "Then we stay," he said. Later that day, the alarm chirped, quiet but sharp. A single ship entered orbit, then dropped into the canyon near their shelter. It wasn't bounty hunters this time. It was royal guards. 3 armored figures stepped out, carrying high-grade weapons and shields. Their symbols matched Riva's royal sigil, but their faces held no kindness, only command. Jacob stepped out first, gun in hand but lowered. Riva followed him, her hood down, collar exposed. The lead guard raised a hand. "Shear 72, he said, coldly. "You have broken exile terms." "I never accepted exile," Riva replied, her voice steady. "I was framed by my own blood. I demand a royal hearing." "There will be no hearing," the guard snapped. "Your sister has declared your existence a threat to unity. We are to erase you." Jacob raised his blaster. "You'll have to go through me," he growled. The guards shifted, ready to fight, but Riva stepped forward. She reached into her pouch and pulled out a crystal device, smooth, glowing, ancient-looking. "This is the memory core," she said. "It holds the proof of my sister's betrayal. You delete me, this data goes public." The guards hesitated. One of them reached for a scanner, eyes wide as the data flickered to life. The images, the documents, the signatures, all real. The lead guard clenched his jaw. This changes everything," he muttered. Riva looked him in the eye. "You can take me in with honor, or leave now and let me disappear forever. Either way, the truth lives." For a long moment, no one moved. Then the guard slowly lowered his weapon. He looked at her again. "Not as a target, but as a rightful heir. You are not what they said you were," he said. "No," Riva replied softly. "I never was." The guards turned, stepped back into their ship, and left without another word. As the engines roared and faded into the sky, Jacob turned to Riva, stunned. You were ready to die," he said. "Yes," she whispered. But now I think I want to live. He smiled, walking over to her. You just saved yourself, he said. No, she replied, looking at him with warmth. You saved me the moment you didn't turn me in. They walked back to the shelter hand in hand. The sky above was clear now. No ships, no threats, just peace inside. The fire crackled. The smell of stew filled the air, and for the first time in a long time, they sat together, not as fugitives, but as something new. Two lives bonded by choice, by trust, by survival, not royalty and scrapper, not alien and human. Just two souls who had found something the universe rarely gave freely. A second chance.